And I was talking to an athlete and they were asking my opinion about supplements. And for that individual, I said, try any ones that you want, of course, within reason, but any of the anti-inflammatories and whatever else is new and comes around CBD, try them all. There is a placebo effect. And if you're a high level athlete, take advantage of that placebo effect for sure. I don't necessarily think that they're always working on the physiological level that we think they are. But when you're at that top 1%, every little bit helps. For the average CrossFitter, I put myself in that boat. I don't take any supplements, and I just think that you can get a lot of what you need from your nutrition.
We are here because we know the outcomes in our lives are within our control. That taking absolute ownership of how we eat, sleep, train, think, and connect with each other is how we'll optimize our health and happiness. That chasing excellence is how we grab hold of what is possible. Our mission is to live on the run, always chasing, never stopping. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Chasing Excellence. How are you guys today?
Great.
We are joined once again by our friend EC Sinkowski of Optimize Me Nutrition.
Yes, thank you.
If you don't know who EC is, then you should ask somebody. Or you should go back to the first two episodes that we've recorded with you, especially the first one if we want to get a good sense of who you are, where you've come from, a lot of your thoughts on nutrition. But for those folks who maybe are just tuning in for the first time, why don't you give us the very short version of who you are, what you do, and where you tend to focus your energies on.
Yeah. Thank you again. And EC Sinkowski, Optimize Me Nutrition. You can find me at that website and also on Instagram. And I really focus...
What is this Instagram you speak of?
The old gram. Really focus on giving people the education, but more so solutions for them to reach their nutrition goals. Ebooks, courses, challenges, that type of stuff.
Fantastic.
And she's wicked smart.
Wicked smart.
Yeah.
She's also taller than most people.
Yes. But for real, like
there's
a reason that we're so excited to have her here is because in my sphere, she's my go-to for nutrition.
Love that.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Okay, so today we're going to do something fun. We did a little bit with you already previously. We sort of tailored it to basically just give Ben an excuse to ask you a bunch of questions. Today, though, Ben, you did reach out to listeners, ask for questions to Ask EC. So what we've done is we've culled through that list of questions, a lot of really good ones. And I'm just going to sort of rapid fire, spit them out to both of you. I know a lot of them maybe require the geekdom of EC, but Ben, if you have answers, please chime in.
I'll let her nerd out about them, and maybe if I have some snide comments on the side, I'll throw my 2 cents in.
Okay,
Perfect.
So for those folks who are new or haven't listened to a 2-minute drill, very simply, I ask a bunch of relatively random questions to you guys, and then you attempt to give a 2-minute or an answer within 2 minutes. We often fail at that 2 minutes, but we'll see how we do today.
Awesome.
First question. And again, these are all random, but certainly within the world today of nutrition. First one, how long do you stick to a specific nutrition plan before you know whether or not you need to change it?
Yeah. 4 weeks, but consistent with it. Really consistent with it. I think that's the key part is it can't be Monday through Friday on and then off on the weekends. 4 weeks. Yeah.
And is that just you feel like it's working and you feel like it's don't, or would you also recommend somebody have a measurement or a metric of some kind to make that decision?
Hopefully a metric for sure. But some of the things that when you're looking at with like health conditions, you do go on feel or more kind of subjective things like bloating or mood or clarity.
Gotcha. Do you have any?
I like the answer. I think that it depends a little bit on. Shocker, depends. Yeah. But if the person is severely overweight, let's say this is a 300-pound individual, I don't want them waiting 4 weeks to see a pound drop on the scale.
Yeah.
If that's not moving relatively quickly in a matter of probably 3, 4, 5, for sure a week, if they haven't dropped a few pounds, then it's probably not the right move for them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Second question. What is better when you failed to prepare? Not to eat or to eat unhealthy? And it's a little bit of a harken back to a previous episode that we've done before where you've talked about, I think it was just a challenge you had for yourself where if you found yourself in a place and you were hungry, but you didn't bring food or there wasn't good food options, you just simply decided not to eat. So I think that's what that is referencing. So I'm curious what you both think about that.
So we threw out my answer.
Yeah, well, yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
No, and I do like that answer. I mean, with the assumption that this is happening more sporadically and this isn't like every day, like, oh shoot, I don't have anything to eat and so we're just not eating.
Damn it, I forgot to bring food again. Looks like I don't get to eat for the 4th day in a row.
Yeah, like assuming, we're within this is more of a sporadic thing. I like Ben's approach of just skipping the meal if it's really the option of that or donut. I think we can all think of the times when we've definitely had too much to eat. So it's okay to also go through a period where you have a little bit less to eat. You'll be okay.
I remember Pat Sherwood once, early days in CrossFit, saying some version of, if there isn't a point during the day that you're hungry,
right,
you're probably fat.
Yeah.
You're probably overweight.
That's okay. So Pat Sherwood.
I didn't think it was going to end with that word.
Not
okay.
either. That's amazing.
I may have paraphrased, but probably not. What gut microbiome tests are worth doing? And what sort of is the landscape even? Are there that many to choose from, and are they that different? Is maybe
Yeah, I mean, I think the landscape is growing quite rapidly. It's definitely an area. So I'm sure I don't know all of them. Popular ones are going to be from Genova. They do a stool profile. GI-MAP, I think it's Diagnostic Solutions, and then Ubiome. And they're all at-home kits where essentially you send a stool sample back for them to analyze. And
you poop on a piece of paper and scoop it out with a tiny little plastic spoon and ship your poop.
Okay, so those are the details. So So all of those are reputable. So in terms of results, they're all reputable, and they kind of have different slants on them. I think, for example, Ubiome, and I don't exactly know, but they might not have as much in terms of the analysis or the user interface to interpret the results. This is at least a year ago, so it's probably changed. But then like GI-MAP focuses more on pathogens. Genova is more kind of known as the standard comprehensive one. So they're all good and reputable for sure. But then it comes back to why are you doing it? And this is going to go longer than 2 minutes, but I do kind of want to go down this rabbit hole. So when I was starting my kind of master's in nutrition, I went down the rabbit hole, kind of hunting, because I wanted to learn all the procedures. And I worked with a naturopath, and I did all these tests, and I did one of these profiles, and we found a potential pathogen, and I did all these supplement protocols, and nothing changed. And it turns out that it's a pathogen that is actually kind of controversial, and it's really unknown of whether or not it's harmful or fine. And so the whole point of that whole kind of story is like, yeah, those are all reputable ones to do, but why are you doing it? Is there a really clinical reason for doing it? And then are you working with a practitioner who can help you in that case?
Gotcha. Have you had any experience with?
I've done 3 of them.
I mean, you seem to, because about all the poop scooping.
Yeah, poop a scoop, scoop a poop.
Do you remember the brand?
Viome.
Oh, okay.
Was the one that seemed to be the most exhaustive and reputable.
Okay.
There's another one called Day 2, which I tried them probably a year and a half ago, and they were way too early.
Okay.
And I can't remember what the third one was. But of those, Viome seemed to give you the user experience was fairly good. The app was really well developed, and the recommendations were fairly solid.
I see.
But again, I would agree with you as well. When I first tried it, I liked the recommendations. I saw good results from the small changes I made. But then it kind of it was hard to buy into the changes that they were suggesting. So they would suggest changes along the way, and I'd make the changes. I wouldn't see as good results. It was, which made me not as excited.
Because they do food recommendations in addition. Yeah. And I think that's where some of the testing's a little bit interesting.
I've heard. Yeah.
So yeah.
Basically you're saying the science isn't there yet to quite go as far as to give food recommendations.
Yeah. I mean, my understanding of the food sensitivity tests and, you can actually show that you have an immune response to something, but your immune response is responding to things all the time because it's basically screening everything you eat and establishing if there's a problem or not. And so a lot of times people take these tests, and I don't know specifically about that one, but a lot of times people take these tests and they end up being positive for foods that they eat a lot. And they're like, oh my gosh, well, I just had avocado and I'm sensitive to avocado. And it's because, yes, your immune system's responding to avocado. That doesn't mean it's responding negatively.
Next question. What is the FODMAP diet? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. What is the FODMAP diet, and should I do it?
FODMAP is short for a lot of different types of carbohydrates like fructose, ogleo, disaccharide, monosaccharide, and polyols. I think I got them. And some people find that when they cut out higher FODMAP foods, they have their symptoms alleviated. And typically I think, if I'm getting my research right, the strongest is for people that have IBS or irritable bowel syndrome, which is actually, I think, the most diagnosed gastrointestinal disorder.
So what are some examples of high FODMAP foods?
So things high in fructose, like mango and cherries, things like that. I'm not going to get all of the different compounds. But yeah, and what is that institute? The Monarch Institute. They probably have the most extensive research and recommendations on their website about what are the foods and how to go about kind of limiting that. But again, I wouldn't encourage people to start eliminating in the absence of real symptoms.
Do you find more value in university taught nutrition as opposed to certifications like precision nutrition? And it might be worth contextualizing your own experience within education so that people understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, I finished this master's degree at University of Western States, and it was in nutrition and functional medicine. And I also have done the precision nutrition at least very early on in Berardi. So I don't know exactly if it's changed, but I really enjoyed that course. And the answer is it depends what you want to do. If you want to have, if you want to talk to people about food sensitivities and lab tests surrounding that and, immune response, then you're going to need the work to be able to do that. And you're going to need to be able to look at the literature, interpret that. And so that would require something a little bit more in depth. I'm not saying you can't do without a degree, but that's typically what you're not going to get at a shorter certification or course. If you're somebody who's doing more health coaching, where it's really just getting people, and I don't want to say just because it's a huge service, but getting people to eat more fruits and vegetables and not too much, really understanding some of the basics around macronutrients and micronutrients, can get you there. But you just have to be careful what your scope is.
Do either of them, or I'm kind of guessing that the precision would kind of weigh more in towards the psychology of eating as well, and how to work with people on a one-on-one basis, and the dynamics of a relationship building and trust and follow through and compliance and all that? Or do they touch on that in university setting?
They did.
Well?
I mean, we definitely worked on motivational interviewing
great.
Because that's a huge part of it. And again, I haven't taken precision recently, but I do remember Berardi really having a good amount of that, which is great because that's what it comes down to a lot with the health coaching for sure. But I do see that in the nutrition space, like just be aware of what your scope is and what you really have the experience to be talking about or with people. Yeah.
Ben, I want to twist the question just a little bit for you. Would you recommend that CrossFit coaches, CrossFit gym owners spend the time necessary to take whether it's precision nutrition or another nutrition certificate course? Is that valuable to CrossFit coaches, or do you feel like that's a little bit outside the scope of what they should be spending their time and energies on?
Yes.
All of the above.
But truly, I believe that if you kind of left something, they should be spending their time becoming educated on nutrition. Nutrition is the foundation of what we're trying to achieve with our athletes. We're trying to create better health, fitness, capacity, whatever you want to kind of fill in the blank there, aesthetics. It is going to be the most important thing. What you do in the gym is not going to pale in comparison to what you do in the kitchen. You don't need to go to a university. You don't need to even do a course to do that. Read books, listen to podcasts, listen to EC. She has courses. Like, you can educate yourself in so many different ways. You don't need the initials after your name to be justified and be able to talk to people about nutrition.
Of all the diet trends out there, is there one that you can stand by?
Yeah, anything that gets people eating more whole unprocessed foods and not too much. And of course, that kind of depends and how people apply different things. But that's really the end goal, and that's where we see similarities to a lot of these trends. I do think the 800-gram challenge is a great place to be. It kind of gets at those two goals pretty well, with also allowing people some flexibility to stay sane in their diet.
We did talk about the 800-gram challenge in the first time you were here, but maybe it's worth, for those folks maybe who didn't tune into that, what is the 800-gram challenge briefly?
Sure.
And maybe where can somebody learn more information about that if they're interested?
Yeah, it's to eat 800 grams by weight of fruits and vegetables each day. And then there's no other rules. So you continue to eat whatever else you want in addition to hitting that target. And there's more info at optimizemenutrition.com.
Good. Ben, do you have an answer to that? Of all the diet trends out there, is there one that you can stand by?
I don't think any one of the diet trends can live on its own. I think if you combine some of these things, they do fairly well. So macros do a great job of keeping people in check with their quantity intake and calories and protein, carbs, and fats. Paleo does a great job of making sure that people are eating whole unprocessed foods. So you combine those two and you have a pretty potent recipe. But one thing by themselves, like keto or intermittent fasting or zone, like none of the things by themselves really paint the whole picture. I like what EC is talking about in terms of what the 800-gram challenge is. 800 grams, so weigh and measure quantity of whole unprocessed fruits and vegetables. So now we have the quality side of it as well. It's the same thing as like the 100 words of fitness,
Yeah.
right? It's like the first 2 sentences are exactly that. It's eat meat, vegetables, nuts, seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar. Keep intake levels to that which support body fat. That would be awesome. Which support exercise, not body fat.
Right?
So it's like that is
That's
the
it.
magic combination. So whatever you can find that fits that, we're in the ballpark.
Got it. My 3-year-old struggles to eat healthy. Do you have any recommendations?
Ben. I don't have a 3-year-old, but what I would say before I turn it over, Ben, because he'll have more practical answers, is you got to kind of go with, I think, what they like. If they really like strawberries and you'd love for them to eat kale, well, today's not the kale day. Today's the strawberry day.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty darn good start. So kudos to you for not. Yeah. First off, it's hard. It's really hard, and I think it's very kid dependent. We have 2 young kids right now. We have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. 4-year-old's not a challenge at all. 6-year-old is. So it's very kid dependent. What we've seen to find really well is one thing I talk a lot about is environment. Like if you want your kid to eat well, don't have bad crap in the house. Yeah. The worst thing that we have available is rice cakes. So that's their treat. Like, and they'll do a lot of things for a rice cake. And it's like their little candy. It's their little treat. But if we have ice cream, cookies, and snack wells and chips, and it's a constant battle, a constant fight. From there, we found like happy mediums. So kind of what EC was talking about, would we love our kids just to eat like, the whole unprocessed foods? Yes. The closest we're going to get to that, to get our 6-year-old protein, is egg sandwiches. So we do eggs on English muffins, and we do that with a bunch of cut up fruit, and that's their dinner. That's his dinner, probably 5, if not 6 nights a week, and that works really well. So like that's the staple, and then from there, anything else is a bonus.
My kid loves Cookie Monster.
How old?
He's 2. He just turned 2, and he just had cookies for the first time, and now he just yells cookies. There's no more cookies. He just yells cookies. Okay, top supplement for an average CrossFitter.
None. Keep the diet quality high and rotate all your sources. Can I go into my non-average CrossFitter answer?
Yeah.
So we were chit-chatting about this before we started, but
by non-average, do you mean like beginner, or do you mean by like advanced?
Advanced. We're talking about a games athlete. Yeah. And I was talking to an athlete, and they were asking my opinion about supplements, and for that individual, I said, try any ones that you want, of course within reason, but any of the anti-inflammatories and whatever else is new and comes around CBD, try them all. There is a placebo effect, and if you're a high-level athlete, take advantage of that placebo effect for sure. I don't necessarily think that they're always working on the physiological level that we think they are. But when you're at that top 1%, every little bit helps. For the average CrossFitter, I put myself in that boat. I don't take any supplements, and I just think that you can get a lot of what you need from your nutrition.
I agree with that.
Excellent. Does the amount of recommended carbs differ between men and women?
Yeah. It can, and it's more because of just need, and women tend to be smaller. So that's typically where you see it, but it really comes down to activity and volume more so than necessarily men versus women.
But the 800 gram challenge is not men and women differentiated, right?
No. And people will ask me that. Remember, that number actually came out of 95 different studies. And when I first had the idea, I made sure Nicole Christensen at CrossFit Roots did it, because I was worried that at 6 feet tall, that maybe I thought it was easy, but a normal person wouldn't think it was so easy. But then I remember, she did it, of course, and it was fine. But it's also like, this is a large population that we're looking at are larger. So it's definitely not just because I'm a larger person, it's easy enough or something like that.
Right. Do you have an answer to that? Or?
It's to me, it's not a male-female thing. It's a body size and activity level. Yeah. So just in general, females tend to be smaller, and that's the reason why.
Yeah.
Got it. How do eating needs change when going through menopause?
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, just aging, not men or women, we have the decrease in kind of metabolic rate. So there's just that issue. resting metabolic rate. And then women also tend to, again, have less muscle mass than men. So it's kind of a double negative there as you're aging. Also, with the decrease in estrogen, there starts to be some glucose, I think, regulation issues as well. So this can be hard to keep some of that weight off. So all of that combined, generally, as you age for a female, going a little bit lower carb and making sure that you keep strength training in are definitely things that you want to really promote. Higher protein, I'm saying that in quotes because it doesn't you don't need to go bodybuilding style here, but higher protein, making sure you're doing regular resistance training and potentially a little bit lower carb.
Mm-hmm. Ben, any answers?
No.
Yeah. That's it.
I don't know anything about that.
Next question. Excuse me. Are turmeric or other anti-inflammatory foods worth paying attention to?
Yes. Yeah, a lot of our fruits and vegetables especially, but have anti-inflammatories in them. You'll hear a lot of times about superfoods and blueberries and kale, but it's not limited to those two. Any of these things that are colored have some of these compounds in them. And so yes, pay attention to them and make them a regular part of your diet.
Are there other, so turmeric is a really popular one, and turmeric is in everything from creams to drinks, but and obviously capsules and supplements.
Yeah.
Is there different potencies, or is there different? Do you have to get a certain amount for it to be actually effective? Because I know there's you'll see a kombucha that has turmeric in it. Am I going to be anti-inflamed if I have that kombucha, or do I need to eat a whole finger-sized root of this thing to get it?
Yeah, and it's difficult when you start looking at the whole food form because the concentrations are going to vary based on a whole host of growing conditions. So that's why when you start going to supplements, you can regulate the dose a little bit more. Yeah, and if I remember correctly, oftentimes I think around 2 grams or so of concentrated turmeric. Also, when you're in a supplement form and for a therapeutic dose, the research I think shows that when it's combined with pepper makes it more active. Now, where was I going with that? All the turmeric drinks and supplements, etc. If the rest of your diet isn't good, that supplement's not going to do anything, right? So you can do your turmeric latte, but if the rest of the diet's kind of processed and burgers, it just gets in the wash. It's
it's kind of like people that are having Metrex protein bars, but they just don't work out.
Right.
And they're I'm going to get huge because I'm eating this protein bar. It's no, it's not the way it works.
Yeah, I mean,
so if I eat bad food, but I have that, it's not going to counterbalance it.
No, I mean, I think we used to say at the seminars, we can't fish oil our way out of a bad diet. You can't turmeric your way out of a bad diet.
Are there foods that are good for adults that aren't good for kids?
I think any of the things that would have potentially a drug-like response, right? Caffeine, alcohol, obviously come to mind.
Alcohol is bad for kids.
Right.
Interesting.
I was did I say the opposite? Yeah. When you first said that, I was did I say that
was
wrong?
A joke. Sorry. I didn't mean to scare you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only other thing I would kind of make a difference, because I really don't think there are, and maybe I'm forgetting something that you'll fix me on here, but especially when kids are developing, that would be the best time to give them the widest array of nutrients as possible within the context of picky children.
No, we've talked about this before. I think that kids should be eating the same way as adults do. And the fact that there is kids menus, that there is this whole aisle in the grocery store dedicated to kids nutrition, is just a farce.
Yeah.
I think that it's food is food, and it's not dependent on your age. And all of a sudden now you're 19, so you don't order off the kiddie menu.
Similar question, a little bit different. What food would you recommend for active teenagers?
Yeah, I mean, it's of course going to be the same thing. I think a little bit for them, again, from my parenting experience, no, but I would imagine having some really cut up convenient stuff ready to go for them is going to be key. They're not going to necessarily come home and start grilling the meat or whatever it is. So having things that are snackable, but are, either rolled up turkey slices with some fruits and vegetables, just easy, I think would be a great idea.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where I would go, is take the same food that you do, but obviously have it ready to go and super easy and convenient, because they don't have the attention span nor the will, or if there's an easier option, they're going to go for the easier option.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Ideal nutrition for breastfeeding moms who do CrossFit.
Yeah. First of all, just make sure you have enough calories for the supply. You definitely don't want to be worrying about, your body composition at that time. So eating enough to support CrossFit as well as breastfeeding. And then, yeah, it's got to be a high quality diet. And this partially goes back to the gut microbiota because we know that breast milk, it has so much of that beneficial side from the immune system is not just when you're breastfeeding, but even during pregnancy. Good amount of fiber, good amount of polyphenol, so that your microbiota is in really good spot.
Got it. Do you have any answers?
The only thing I would say is my experience is through Heather and
Yeah.
through her pregnancies. And I feel very lucky that she took it. I understand that it's different. Everyone has different pregnancies, and some people have crazy cravings and they have a hard time sticking to a healthy diet. Heather, regardless of those cravings, was like, this is the one time I really have full, total control over what my baby is eating. Once they're born, they're going to have their own wants and needs. This is my one time to make a healthy baby. And she ate at the cleanest that she's ever eaten in her whole life during the pregnancy through breastfeeding. So I would take, I think there's an onus on the responsibility of the mother to, I don't know what the answers are other than like normal healthy eating that we prescribe all the time. There are some nuancy things that actually go into actually the breastfeeding time, which I'm unaware of. But it's just a matter of that time matters and matters a lot.
Yeah. She was dialed.
Yes.
Those are the questions from listeners. I want to add one more just because it popped in my head as you were talking. Because of your experience and education in functional medicine, what is functional medicine? Yeah. And is it called functional medicine because it is there's the implication that other medicine is somehow dysfunctional?
Yeah, dys is better probably than non-functional. Yeah, so functional medicine is the idea that you're going to find the root cause of the disease or the problem versus necessarily masking it. And you can take the type 2 diabetes example. One, masking it in more conventional medicine might be to take metformin, which can help regulate glucose. And then another more functional medicine approach might be to reverse it with a keto diet. And so that's the idea, is to try to end the disease versus just mitigate the disease. So you could say that, there's parts of our conventional medicine system that I guess are dysfunctional because they might not always take that approach. I do think there has been a little bit of too much of a backlash in conventional medicine. I mean, we have to remember that the doctors in conventional medicine have gone to med school. They have done 4 years of residency. They have a lot of clinical training. They've looked at a lot of lab results. And so sometimes I think that gets discounted as though anything natural is always better. And that's not the case either. So I think ultimately there could be a great kind of synergism between the two of, hey, let's really use what we can when we can that's natural and healthy, and also recognize the power of, more modern medicine, if you will.
Great.
Yeah, I think that I love what you said there about kind of the marriage of the two. If I'm looking to optimize my health, I want to go see a functional medicine practitioner because they'll look at this as more as a trying to figure out the root cause. But if I get hit by a bus, like, don't take me to the person that's going to like do acupuncture.
Right.
Like, I want to like go to like somebody that can do trauma work on me right there. The analogy that stuck with me really well when I first kind of found out about functional medicine is if you're walking around with a pebble in your shoe and it's causing you a lot of pain and discomfort, traditional medicine goes like, well, here's an ibuprofen. Like, here's an Advil, take that, it'll help the pain go away. Whereas a functional medicine person goes like, well, let's look in your shoe. There's a pebble. Let's take the pebble out. It's like they look at the root causes. So you have eczema, instead of like looking and be like, okay, here's a cream for this eczema. They'll look at a deeper dive into like, what's your diet like? What's your lifestyle like? What's your, your genetics and so on.
Yeah. And I still though would want to wrap that up with this sort of like, we have to remember that not everything natural is always okay either, right? Like, it's okay if sometimes we use modern medicine because there are some things that even aren't necessarily the not the amputation or a bus injury or something like that that's so drastic. There can be other things that are okay to take medicine for sure. And just to kind of go on that, because I feel like functional medicine is quite in the limelight right now. So my master's capstone paper was on probiotics and its effect on rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease. And in my mind, when I started that, I was like, oh yeah, probiotics. I mean, they modulate the immune system. We're going to reverse autoimmunity. And this is totally going to be the way that we can treat rheumatoid arthritis. And no, and according to the research, at least through December of 2017 that I found, no, they definitely had looked at probiotics, but nothing, some things started to change some inflammatory marker signaling, but nothing changed the clinical experience or the clinical effect. And rheumatoid arthritis is very debilitating. People's joints are destroyed because of it. And it's like, the last thing I would want is somebody who has that to think, well, I'm just going to do it the natural way. And then 15 years later have destroyed joints because the science is not there yet. And so that's kind of where I want to caution people a little bit with this whole natural is always better idea.
Got it. Thank you.
That wasn't 2 minutes. Sorry.
That's okay.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
Thank you to everybody who submitted questions. We will do that again soon because the questions we get are always so good. EC, thank you so much. Where can people find more about you, about what you're doing with Optimize Me and all that good stuff?
Yeah, just the website, optimizemenutrition.com, and same handle on Instagram. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, EC.
Thanks. You can get every episode of Chasing Excellence wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Until next time, thank you for listening.